What up, what up, what up, what up? Jordan Chariton, Tommy Tahifi Bayless on a wonderful, wonderful Tuesday afternoon in New York City. Is it Tuesday? Oh, no, it's Wednesday.
Is it? Yeah.
Time flies
Jesus
when
Christ.
the country's falling apart. Are you sure everything's right?
Huh?
We got no desktop audio blocking things?
Right now?
Mm-hmm.
No, right now it's all us.
Keep going.
It's all us. I know what I'm doing. I set it up.
All right. Sometimes,
Sometimes you try to set it
Sometimes you
up.
think you know what you're doing and you don't know what you're doing.
Sometimes you try to set it up. Is what you mean?
Yeah, yeah. So we are now on while the Michael Cohen extravaganza is still underway. So there might be stuff.
What is this?
What? Why don't you wear the hat?
Look how small it is.
Now you got a big head. While Michael Cohen is still testifying, so there might be some stuff that happens that we don't get in here. But
Yeah.
there's been enough that's happened that we could talk about it. Also, Bernie Sanders raking in the money and support, so we're going to cover that. And there's a Medicare for All bill, a new Medicare for All bill, led by Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal, that has been introduced today. So we got a lot of things to talk about. I do think we should start with the Michael Cohen extravaganza to say what is a big deal and what is not a big deal. Have you enjoyed watching Mr. Cohen?
Very entertaining.
Very
to say the
entertaining?
least. Very entertaining to say the least.
Yes, yes. I thought it would have the same fanfare as, Comey, which Comey
Really?
testifying was like the Super Bowl. So it's been a little less than that, but it's still pretty big. CNN's enjoying themselves, MSNBC's enjoying themselves, and I'm sure a lot of Hillary Clinton.
They're really enjoying themselves.
Yeah. I got to show the screen, so whenever you're done doing whatever you're doing.
Just tell me what you want to do. I'm just trying to set something else up while we're doing this.
So
Where
let's
do you want to go?
screen share. So let me show what I want. So far, besides calling Trump basically a scum, essentially a grifter, somebody who is a chronic liar, somebody who told him to lie. There hasn't been any major fireworks. There's been some things that are troubling for Trump. But since CNN, MSNBC, the media's main interest is Russia, I want to start with what has not been shown. Michael Cohen said himself he does not have any evidence that Donald Trump colluded or his campaign colluded with the Russian government. Questions have been raised about whether I know of direct evidence that Mr. Trump or his campaign colluded with Russia. Cohen said, I do not. I want to be clear. So you can't really get any more clear than that. I also want to say to folks who are very interested in this outcome that there's a collusion between the Trump campaign.
Are invested. Let's say
invested. I would find it. I don't think Michael Cohen is this stupid to go and lie in front of a Congress
Again?
when he's going into jail for 3 years. Because if it was proved he's lying in front of Congress, that could add on to his already 3-year jail sentence.
No, it can't.
So yeah, it can.
No, I mean, they would have to recharge him.
Well, there could be additional charges for lying.
They would have
again.
to recharge him. They would have
Right,
to
right.
go through and spend the money and go through court to recharge him for something.
But the point is, he potentially could face more jail time for doing
He
that.
potentially, but it seemed like he lied about some stuff. I think it's well documented that he really wanted a space in the Trump White House, and he made it seem equivocally as if he did not.
Yeah, but that's the type of thing that, how do you prove that? What's in his mind?
What's in his mind? Well, you got a numerous amount of people that had contact with him that actually said no, he was really hurt by the fact that all of a sudden he was put on the out when he got in the office.
So
I don't think everybody, and this is before he even went against Trump. This is before he even got raided.
Right. So I also think something that the Russia collusion enthusiasts are going to latch onto. Michael Cohen said Donald Trump's former attorney and fixer, Michael Cohen.
Can you see this?
Oh,
Keep
wait, I didn't.
talking.
Blah, 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 blah. Donald Trump's former fixer and attorney. I got to see your screen.
I know. I'm just making sure that they can hear you.
Testified in detail Wednesday about the president's involvement in hush money payments. I'll get to that later. But he also said that in his testimony, wait, where's the part about Roger Stone?
A lot of Roger Stone in there.
Stone. So When it was Democrats' turn to question Cohen, they gave him the chance to add new details about how he prepared his previous congressional testimony in which he lied, as well as the hush money payments and Trump's conversations with Stone. So as far as Stone, Michael Cohen said that he was in President Trump's office when President Trump got a call from Roger Stone, still during the campaign, saying, hey, I just got off the phone with WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange, and there's going to be an email dump coming.
I think. Well, if anyone, go ahead.
But let me finish. So he said that happened, I believe, in I think July of 2016. The problem with that, as Matt Taibbi pointed out, over/under on news outlets today who will underscore Cohen's testimony that Trump in July 2016 knew in advance and ahead of time of a WikiLeaks dump damaging to Clinton, and leave out that Assange announced this on TV on June 12th. So basically, they're trying to make it seem like Roger Stone gave Donald Trump advance notice that WikiLeaks was coming out with a dump in a phone call in July 2016. The only problem is the whole world had access to this because Julian Assange in June of 2016 went on a program right here and said more leaks to come on Hillary Clinton. Said that the journalist organization is planning to release upcoming leaks in relation to U.S. presidential hopeful Hillary Clinton. So, is it possible that Roger Stone just made up that he had spoken with Julian Assange on the phone to endear himself to Donald Trump? But the point is, Donald Trump didn't get any advance notice that the rest of the world couldn't have got. And this is why it's important, Matt Taibbi, who works for Rolling Stone, you're not going to hear this on CNN, MSNBC today, pointing out, wait a minute, the timeline doesn't match up. Julian Assange had already announced more information was coming out. But I will point out, wait, gotta do something, transition back. Natasha Burchard, I think her name is, points out, she's with The Atlantic, she points out from somebody else, Trump actually told Mueller in writing that Roger Stone did not tell him about WikiLeaks, per CNN. But Cohen now says Stone told Trump about the impending WikiLeaks release in July 2016, if Mueller can prove Cohen's story. So,
I mean, if you look at the documentaries, The Circus, back during the campaign.
A terrible show that you love because you love The Establishment.
Got that part. So back when the campaign was still going, Roger Stone was on there bragging as if he was in connection with Julian Assange, or he had a person that was in connection with, that he wasn't directly in connection. But if you know Roger Stone, you know he loves to embellish, and he may have had some type of contact, but to say that he knew information before anyone else does, no. But it depends who you want to lead, your own eyes or Roger Stone.
And Roger Stone is famous for saying, he basically calls lies, like lying is just shaping public discourse. So, like, he's open that he lies. So the fact that he could have called could have called Donald Trump during the campaign and said, "I just got off the phone with Julian Assange."
It's definitely true, but that doesn't mean that he actually was in contact with him. Of course, he'd do that to make himself look bigger. I mean, if you know Donald Trump and you know how you have to relate to him, you know how you have to relate to him. If you know Roger Stone embellishes. Right. If you're not familiar with him, look at Get Me Roger Stone. If you want to get even more familiar with him, you can Google what he did with the old district attorney of New York. What's his name?
What was his name? The one that got
busted with the prostitutes?
I forget his name. Elliot Spitzer.
Elliot Spitzer.
Yeah.
What he did with the journalist, not Dan Rathers, but the other guy.
I don't know.
He said that he the one that got him fired. That's also on Get Me Roger Stone. Like, you can see who this guy is.
That is Dan Rather.
Yeah, it was Dan Rather. Yeah. You can see what he did, what he does to get people when he has the right backing. He can make anything happen. Right. And he's the one that got Trump elected.
But even though by him calling Trump, it's he didn't give Trump any advance notice because Julian Assange had already made it publicly available. The one thing that's true, if Trump put in writing, I did not hear about the WikiLeaks things from Roger Stone in writing to the special prosecutor, that would be lying to the special prosecutor's office. But the thing is, how could it be proven? Yeah. This is Michael Cohen's word that he was in the office when a call came in. Presumably, Special Prosecutor Robert Mueller would have the phone records if that occurred. So two things could be true. Number one, Roger Stone didn't talk to Assange, which I don't think he did.
No.
Roger Stone was lying to Trump that he talked to Assange, that he told him WikiLeaks information was coming out that the world already had access to know they were coming out, but Trump lied about getting advance notice. Trump lied about hearing from Roger Stone about WikiLeaks.
Yeah, I don't doubt the fact that I think if Roger Stone did anything, it's confirming, this is happening.
But Roger Stone's the type of person that would literally read a news article that Julian Assange has dumps coming out about Hillary Clinton, then make a call. Hey, I just spoke with Julian Assange. Lying.
I mean, if you guys don't know, like the whole birther issue came from Roger Stone.
Right.
It came from Roger Stone. Roger Stone's the first one that brought that up and put that inside of Trump's head, and they rolled with it.
Right. So now we get rid of the Russian collusion thing. I mean, who knows? Cohen might say something as the hearings go on. But so far, there's nothing about ironclad Russian collusion, which I know Rachel Maddow is going to try to create something out of it tonight. But unfortunately,
I'm sorry, I got this napkin. I'm like going through allergies.
You're going through some things.
I'm going through allergies or something.
The other damning thing was Michael Cohen showed a check written by, I believe it was signed.
2 checks. One was signed by Trump. The other one was signed by Small Don or Don
Donald
Jr.
Trump Jr. So
and another guy that works inside the organization.
So Donald Trump Jr. signing a check to Stormy Daniels, I believe, while Trump was president.
Yeah.
That's problematic for Donald Trump Jr. because
it's problematic that Donald Trump signed it as well, and this is after he said he's giving the organization over to his kids.
Right. And at the time Donald Trump signed it, I believe he was president. Yeah. But also I believe he signed it before that time on the airplane when he was questioned, do you know anything about these hush money payments? And he said, no, I don't. You'd have to ask Michael Cohen. So everything that
we've known that was a lie for some months now.
Right, but my point is everything, as of now, Mueller might have something else. Everything that is kind of criminally liable about Trump has nothing to do with Russia. It has to do with lying about lying about how long he was negotiating for the Trump Tower in Moscow, lying about the hush money payments to Stormy Daniels, which none of his supporters care about either of those. But there's nothing about, there's nothing in here that shows that he was working with the Russian government to hack the DNC, to hack Podesta. None of that is shown. One thing that is in here that Michael Cohen is saying that could be a criminal charge against President Trump is Cohen is saying, here we go. Cohen is saying that changes were made to his testimony about the Trump Tower Moscow deal by Trump's lawyer, Jay Sekulow, and maybe others on Trump's legal team before Cohen testified to Congress, before he lied to Congress. Yeah. So that would indicate that Trump and his legal team were obstructing justice.
It wouldn't indicate Trump and his legal team was obstructing justice. His legal team can operate without Trump. You know what I'm saying? In the best interest of Trump. Cohen in himself said that he would operate without getting direct consent from Trump, but based on their interaction in the past, he would be like, okay, Trump would want me to do this and would do it on behalf of Trump without telling Trump, and it will let Trump know later. So,
well, yes and no, because lawyers are supposed to clear things by their client before they take action on behalf of the client.
That may be true, but obviously Cohen is saying, as his lawyer, he did not do that. Cohen said, no, I would do things based on what I knew that Trump wanted based on history. So based on that, I would do things without consulting with him. So in that regard, you can easily see his lawyers doing something without him knowing.
But what I'm saying,
in order to protect him.
But what I'm saying is all of what we're saying right now is under the caveat Mueller might have something else that substantiates that Trump did know and that Trump was directing it. You see what I'm saying? Like, Mueller might have information that shows, no, Trump was the one pulling the strings, because Michael Cohen was still with Trump. He was still in Trump's camp at that time. He might have phone calls. He might have, who knows?
Based on what Cohen is saying right now, Trump is not as dumb as we think he is. Like, he's like, no, he would not tell us directly. He would say around about, he would do things that will then infer based on, you would have to have history with him to know what he meant by those things.
Right.
So that's why I was like, no, you won't find something recorded outside of what he recorded and what he has of Trump, because he wouldn't do text messages. And that's, remember what I had said, that's crazy that a man that tweets so much doesn't text message.
Right.
And obviously, you know, you think about if his school of thought, which people always go to the fact that he sounds like a mobster, let's just entertain that idea, that school of thought. They never used phones. They never used anything that would show kind of communication, and they would always. So if that was his kind of the tunnel that he went in, building his persona, building his business, then obviously he's in that regard. There are certain things you're not going to be able to attach him to, because he's always like.
Yes and no, though, because it's already been shown that Michael Cohen recorded Trump in many cases.
Well, that goes the same reason that the majority of mobsters are put down. It was always with someone that's really close to them.
You seem to know a lot about the mob.
I do know a lot about the mob. It's always with someone that's close to them. So it makes sense that Cohen would then be able to get that access and record that. But Cohen said, outside of his own recordings, that they already have, there's nothing else. And I would go to say that there's nothing else, except the only argument you really have that you can say, okay, could there be other evidence, is the fact that he signed a check. But based on what Trump said, he didn't think it was a big deal that he still operated in his business capacity. That was more of a perception thing than an actual legal thing.
No, because there are laws against a sitting president of the United States also enriching himself or having business interests. Obama had to divest himself from certain things, and other presidents had to divest themselves from certain things.
It's a perception thing. I don't think it's a business thing, because he kept saying he can do it. It's a perception. It's all about perception, because it's the perception that you're keeping this, because then the things that you're doing as president is to alleviate that perception, you then take yourself out of it. But it's not legal at all.
However, what we're talking about two different things. So even if Trump didn't break any laws in real time doing what he was doing, if he lied about the things he was doing to Robert Mueller, you're in deep shit.
Exactly.
Right.
But then how do we get to those lies?
We'll see what Mueller's report has to say. But I've been saying forever and ever and ever, even when I was at the Young Turks.
He's given a statement to
a written statement. I've always said, I don't see a Russian collusion boogeyman. What I see is, he had shady business deals that he was probably lying about. Because as Michael Cohen said about 10 times, he never in a million years thought he was going to win the presidency. Yeah. So he was just basically using this as a big marketing PR thing. And so he was trying to get that Moscow tower. He didn't want to lose that opportunity, so he lied about how long into the process of the campaign those negotiations went. I think he told Cohen to lie to Congress, saying it was over in January 2016. It actually was, they were talking as recently as summer 2016. But to me, the most damning, if you want to say, if it comes out that Mueller has evidence to support it, if Trump was at all involved, even if not directly, but was in communication with his lawyers about what they were doing, what they were directing Michael Cohen to say to Congress, that's obstruction of justice. Because you are...
And that's what we don't see.
And he was doing it as president, not during the campaign, because Michael Cohen testified after. But
so that's what we don't see.
Right. But what I would like to express is two things. Number one...
Go here.
Look here?
Yeah. We're on that camera right now.
Number one...
I said look here.
Number one, there's two separate things. So on one hand, Donald Trump could be a sleazy businessman. Donald Trump could have had, well, probably did have numerous affairs, and I'm sure his wife knows about it, and that's baked
And
into.
I'm sure she don't care.
I mean, she sleeps in a separate room from all accounts.
And also, big up to him saying, you know what? As far as I'm concerned, he's never been that type of person. It's a completely different type of person that hits their wife versus lies.
Right.
So I'm glad he didn't convolute the two. I think it gives more credibility to his intentions. He's not just trying to paint this boogeyman because there were allegations of him hitting his wife. He said, no, never seen anything like that. I thought that was great, just on the credibility part, you know. Right. I don't think you can really argue his whole intention is to just do in with and by any means lie to get his point across.
And I think that, to be honest with you, to me,
I need to brush my teeth.
To me, what this hearing is showing is a lot of things we already knew. Donald Trump probably had shady financial dealings when it comes to Russia. Donald Trump wanted to hush up porn star payments, probably not so much for the campaign, but because of his wife. Yeah. I mean, you know, it's basically
he was like, he done it too many times. He told her he wasn't going to do it no more.
Right.
He didn't want to have this drama.
Also, in a lot of cases, and we knew this with Jackie O, it's not so much they understand that their husband is not faithful, but they don't want to be embarrassed.
Exactly. They don't want it in the face. It's a different thing to know it, and then it's a different thing for everybody else to know.
But to me, the most important thing...
And a different thing to know everybody else knows.
But to me, the most important thing that comes out of this, unless I'm missing something, is what, again, all of the time that has been wasted among the corporate media, foaming at the mouth about an imaginary boogeyman of Russian collusion when they could have just waited for Mueller's report. Because you're running out of people that could prove Russian collusion. Manafort's not proving Russian collusion. All he has proven is stuff separate from the Trump campaign. He was a tax evader, money laundering, even before he joined the Trump campaign. Yeah. Who else? Michael Flynn doesn't prove Russian collusion. He's going to jail for something that happened after Trump was elected. Who else is in the orbit that's going down? George Papadopoulos doesn't really prove Russian collusion with the Trump campaign. So really, unless I'm missing something, your last hope was Michael Cohen, and he's in front of Congress with really a lot of jeopardy if he lies again, saying, I don't really have any evidence. All he said is there were some odd things. He did say, I found it odd that Trump was talking so lovingly about Putin during the campaign, but is it really odd if he was still actively trying to get a Moscow Trump Tower, which Putin could make happen with the snap of his fingers? So I think what this hearing is showing is Rachel Maddow, Morning Joe, the Washington Post, the New York Times, again, unless Robert Mueller proves me wrong, and all along, dating back to 2.5 years ago, even when I was on the campaign trail and all this stuff was starting, I said, I'm not opposed to an investigation. Listen, I think it's a little much to have $30 to $40 million spent, but anyway, I'm not opposed to an investigation, but let's cover like real issues and wait. That doesn't mean investigative reporters can't try to find out what Mueller is investigating.
Investigating, guess what? Investigating is not a night.
Right. So doesn't mean investigative reporters, which that doesn't really exist anymore. Most reporters on CNN, the New York Times, are just stenographers for the deep state, CIA, FBI, and whatever the hell the government tells them, uncritically just passing it along to you, the news consumer. However, did we really need, for 2.5 years, segment after segment after segment of just gross speculation that the Russian collusion and this and that, when there was never any hard evidence that the Trump campaign or Trump actively was working with even liaisons to the Russian government, cutouts to the Russian government. There was never any firm evidence of that, and we've wasted time. No coverage of the ongoing water crisis in Flint, about to turn 5 years old. No coverage of black men being executed to this day all over the country by a militarized police occupying force. No coverage of the environmental genocide, from pipelines to water to mining to nuclear power plants.
What? No coverage of any of this stuff. So you know, there are some things in here that are going to be questionable for President Trump, but let's look at it this way. Do you think the Republican Party, the Republican Senate, which still controls the Senate, is going to impeach Donald Trump over campaign finance violations? Do you think the Republican Senate is going to impeach Donald Trump over hush money payments to porn stars? Do you think the Republican Senate, honestly, would even impeach Donald Trump over whether he was... They might actually be forced to impeach him if it's proven that he was part of Michael Cohen's lies to Congress and he was directing that. I don't know how the Republican Senate can get around that. But hey, man. And by the way, I didn't mention it, but like obviously the Republicans were a total joke today.
And
no, complete joke.
Like they were like pretending that they were basically just pointing out what a scumbag Cohen is, which he is. But like he brought checks, he brought documents, he has documentation.
Cohen brought up the fact that we've been here 2 hours and we've yet to like investigate the evidence that you guys know that I'm bringing here,
right?
Because your own intention is to do the president's bidding, period.
So to button this up, to me, the key things, number one, Don Jr. signing that check. Number two, Donald Trump signing that check. Donald Trump, I don't know everything he told Robert Mueller in writing, but he certainly did tell the news media he didn't know about those hush money payments. And that's been shown not only through the recording
Michael Cohen had, where he was directing him to make the hush money, but now that he signed the check while he was president. Also, Michael Cohen saying that he didn't have any firm evidence that Trump was, or that Trump wasn't directing him to lie to Congress. We'll see if Robert Mueller has something, because it doesn't necessarily need to be Trump directly directing Cohen to lie to Congress, but Trump could have been aware through conversations with his lawyers what the lawyers were telling Michael Cohen, and that's still obstruction of justice.
It is obstruction of justice if that is indeed the case. But I will then go on the other side and say anyone that is arguing that point can easily point at Michael Cohen saying, look, there's been a lot of times in the 10 years I've worked with him that he did not tell me to do something that I did. And he was like, well, isn't it unethical? That's what the guy was arguing with him, the Republican, trying to point out that he's a liar. Well, isn't it unethical that you would do something like that a lawyer would not advise a client? He's like, yeah, but I would do that because everyone's intention in there, Trump can't know about everything, but every other person can, and our intention is to protect the president. That means we're going to move first and then let him know later because the intention is to protect the president,
right?
Or to protect Donald Trump,
right?
Then Donald Trump.
So we'll see. I mean, the testimony is going to resume in a little bit, so we'll see if anything else comes out of it. But as of now, it's been a bit of a grandstanding show by the Republicans. The Democrats are now back in love with Michael Cohen, which is predictable. Yeah. And, hey, I will say, Cohen, listen, he's a sleazeball, but at least he's a sleazeball that's trying, he thinks, to do the right thing. Because obviously, Michael Cohen is just your average guy, average capitalist, tax cuts for the rich, great. Tax cuts for corporations, great.
Obviously a Democrat, like you said.
Obviously has no problem with, half the country living in poverty. So let's not rehabilitate Michael Cohen to the point of no return. However, at least if he seems to be against autocrats. Yeah. He seems to be against the hate speech that Trump has ushered in and the division. Yeah. So that's what it seems. Who knows? But, and he's not. And by the way, he's never going to serve 3 years in prison.
No, he's not. We were talking about this earlier, but ironically, the second step, the First Step Act that Trump passed through Congress that he wrote into law is actually a state legislation that will allow him to only serve half the time. And actually even less than that in a maximum security prison. What will happen then is after he does maybe even a quarter of his time, the other quarter will go to a halfway house, which is kind of a house that they have. It's in the neighborhoods, in the home that they have to people that's just getting out of jail, that's trying to reintroduce themselves back into society.
Right. So, well, the other thing, I would love him to be asked if he knew of any meeting that Paul Manafort had with WikiLeaks. Remember the Guardian story that still, to this day, 2 years later, nobody's ever been able to, not 2 years, 2 months later, the Guardian reported that Paul Manafort met with Julian Assange in the Ecuadorian embassy. Yeah. I think right when Paul Manafort became Trump's campaign manager. As Glenn Greenwald, as others have pointed out, there's no evidence for this, but the Guardian's never had to retract it. Michael Cohen would have probably known about that, but nobody's asked it yet.
FYI, so we'll me and Michael Cohen's daughter went to the same school, Queen Mary University in London.
Michael Cohen's daughter and I.
I said me and Michael Cohen's daughter went to the same college in London called Queen Mary University. Me and Michael Cohen's daughter. Like
I know. I'm telling you, it's Michael.
I don't
Cohen
care.
and
I'm not worried about what you say.
Well, you want to be more.
No, it ain't.
You want to be an on-air. You want to be an on-air guy.
This is his white savior complex.
Why don't you tell the audience what you said about this shirt last night and hurt my feelings?
What did I say?
You said you look terrible.
That's a lie.
That's what you said.
That's not a lie. Did you wear that shirt last night?
I was going to before you told me.
Well, which one did you wear? You wore a articulation of that shirt. It was button it up in pink.
I was dressing up for a date.
A date with someone that doesn't like him.
Mm-hmm. And
that's usually him because he liked to spin the wind.
No, that's not.
He liked to buy love.
That's not true. On a kind of related. On a kind of related note, before we get to the next topic, I would like you all to come on a date with Status Quo.
At statusquo.com/join. We're at 265.
Yeah.
265 paid monthly or annually members. And this is how we're going to grow this army even larger. So, $5 a month. Or $10 a month. There's other plans. You can support independent media. You can support us covering the campaigns in the field. We would love, if you saw our interview with Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard, presidential candidate, we'd love more funding so we can go out and cover her campaign. She's been to Iowa already, I'm sure.
They're almost treating her like she's not even a candidate.
Not almost. They're treating her like she's not.
It's bizarre.
Yeah. So we'd love to cover her campaign. Obviously, we want to cover Bernie Sanders' campaign. We would love to ask Senator Kamala Harris some questions out there in the field, and we would also.
Kamala Harris ain't fucking with us.
No. So we'll have to be, we're not going to get an appointment interview, but we'll figure out a way. But we really need to grow this organically and grassroots. So I hope you're considering, as we're already almost in March, factor us into your budget if you can, because real, aggressive, independent media that doesn't just do Trump and Russia 24/7 and actually rolls up its sleeves and get out there in the field is so critical in this age of endless sensationalism bullshit that we're seeing.
We should tell them to go to the website and things like that.
Yeah. I just said statusquo.com/join.
I think we need to put up. I think we need to.
Yes. So we want you start going to statusquo.com on the daily, multiple times a day. You'll see our YouTube videos there. We're going to be starting to write more written articles. You can check out if you're a member. That's where all the content's there under member content. Also, you'll get a pop-up when you go to statusquo.com that says allow notifications. Press allow notifications. That way, you don't have to depend on YouTube and their fudgery. You can get the notifications when we upload a video on our website, which are a lot more dependable than YouTube, which generally gives you a notification the next postal year. So, statusquo.com/join to become a member. Statusquo.com. Click allow notifications while you're there. Enter your email. That's another way we're going to grow. And obviously we're live. Well, obviously we are on 5 o'clock Eastern. 5 o'clock Eastern on the daily, and we might have some announcements about we're going to be going live more often at our website. So
absolutely.
From Michael Cohen to what could be the next president of the United States, Bernard Sanders.
That's our hope.
Who, let me tell you something. If Joe Biden raised $10 million in a week,
they would be going crazy. He's nothing but the next president. He's nothing but the only thing that stops us. We haven't voted yet. He will be the next president.
If Joe Biden raised $10 million in 1 week, if Joe Biden had it from 369,000 contributors, if Joe Biden had, I believe, 39% of those who donated were new emails, they'd be calling the election. They would just say, to hell with it. Why do we need an election? Yeah. Joe Biden is the man. Bernie Sanders, we'll give you a town hall. And frankly, from what it looked like, it seems like they planted a few of those people to ask those questions, because they made it seem like these people were just like, this person that lives in
concerned citizen.
But a lot of them were actually like worked for their local Democratic parties wherever they lived. And frankly, although I think the question on what Bernie will do differently to avoid sexual harassment was a good question, and it should be asked. He's already answered it, but that's okay. They left out the fact that that young lady was an intern for one of the most powerful lobbying firms in Washington, D.C. Color me a little cynic, but I find it hard to believe that interning at that lobbying firm they might have not mentioned to her potential questions she could ask. Hey, again, topic
or slide to her a couple one or two. Right. Because what I noticed out the gate is that after she asked, when he said, that's not really what I said.
Jesus, man. Thank
God the new Medicare for All plan is going to cover hearing aids.
When he said that, well, that's not my exact quote. She had no rebuttal. She was like, oh, what? If you look at her face, it's like, what do I do now?
Right.
I don't have anything to say to that.
She didn't have the lobby in her ears.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, if you know something, my next thing was like, no, this is what you said on XYZ is what you said. You know, but she was like, look at her disposition. Body languages show a lot.
To be clear, I have no problem with the question. It's an important topic. Like Bernie Sanders, I don't think his first answer on it was all that good, saying, well, I was a little busy, blah, blah, blah. That might be true, but you're still responsible for your campaign, whether it's him or
he did make the statement.
Right.
He said that that was his exact statement.
She was making it seem like he made the statement in a way like, oh, I wasn't paying attention. It was a little out of context, but he basically said
that's what he said. So I didn't. What I got out of what his response was, I didn't exactly say that. But if she quoted what he said, I would take it that way too. It's not like I wasn't busy. So what you're inferring is that you were too busy to look at everything. I can understand if he says, you know what, I can't say as a campaign I don't have. You see, I think this goes back to the thing that I was telling you the other day. It's as important to explain the structure of your point than to just like your point can be more important than that people get exactly what you're trying to say.
Right.
Because if it sounds like what she said, I would have took it exactly the same way, as if I don't have time for that.
But to tell you the truth, and again, I think the question was right on. Obviously, sexual harassment can't be tolerated in campaigns or anywhere else. And frankly, it's not just Bernie's campaign. And by the way, beyond sexual harassment...
What does that mean? What does that mean? Why does that matter?
No, I'm saying the media is making it seem like, oh, Bernie. There's rampant, not just sexual harassment, but verbal abuse in politics. And,
I think that's known.
Campaigns.
Why does that need to be said right now? Like that almost.
Because my point
but that goes, that's like gaslighting. That's saying the same thing that a Republican or any Democrat would say.
No, that's not what I'm saying.
Well, it's not just us. No shit. That's not what I'm saying. That's not the argument.
No, my point is the media's coverage has zeroed in exclusively on Bernie Sanders without looking at the broader topic. Is this a problem in general in politics? I think that's a fair criticism. Yes, Bernie should have had to answer for it, but they're making it seem like, oh, this is just an epiphany and it's just Bernie Sanders' campaign.
No. I think we've addressed that it's a problem overall. I think we've clearly addressed that over the past year.
I'm talking about the media.
The media, that's what I'm talking about.
And political campaigns? I don't think so.
No, not in political campaigns, but the idea that it's a huge issue in every campaign,
I'm talking about
in
campaigns.
Every situation where it seems like a man can use their authority, that it's an issue. I think we've made that very clear.
But I'm talking about specifically presidential campaigns. I don't think they really got into that. But whatever. My other point about why I thought she was a plant, if you looked at her, quote, question, it started with a statement. And the statement was...
that was completely different than the question.
Right.
But mind you.
Yes.
Completely different.
So the statement was basically a Democratic Party talking point that the Democratic electorate definitely looks a little different than you, Bernie. It's younger, people of color, blah, 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 which has nothing to do with his stance on sexual harassment. So it's almost like that was slipped in for her from the lobbying firm she's worked in to basically be like, Bernie, aren't you too white and old to run for president?
First off, you're too white, you're too old. Hey.
And what about the sexual harassment?
Exactly.
Right. Anyway, on to the topic at hand. So, let's show you the screen. So, Bernie has raised $10 million in the first week of his presidential campaign. $10 million from 359,914 donors. That is...
those votes.
And that is majority small dollar donations.
Those people knocking on doors, right? There.
Aside from the 10 million total, representing 14% of Sanders' fundraising sum in 2015.
Only 14%.
3 factors from week 1 stand out in the senator's favor.
Who's this?
New York Magazine. In a race where the source of the fundraising could be as important as the money itself, Sanders is relying on small gifts from young donors. Let's be clear, we love money from older progressives too. because some viewers.
You're only reading an article. This has nothing to do with our views.
Get out of my face. According to the Times, donations to the economic populist averaged around $26, and the most common age for a donor was 30 years old. The 2020 field. This apartment.
That's amazing.
This apartment complex. The 2020 field has shifted way to the left of the last cycle, and among the more liberal candidates in the pack, corporate donations could act as a PR burden, blah, 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 blah. Second, it looks as if Sanders has attracted a new swath of voters, according to information shared with the Times. Almost 39% of donors used an email address that was not registered with the 2016 campaign. So literally not almost, but like in the vicinity of half of these donors were new donors.
And wasn't most of them Republicans as well, right?
No, I think like 12% were actually Republicans. So the narrative is, but Bernie hasn't built his base since 2016. Apparently he has, because almost 40% of the donors were new email addresses. So that's why I was always saying...
People have been paying attention. He's the only one that's been working.
And by the way, that's why I was always saying, do you know any president... Like, did Mitt Romney, after he lost in 2012, barnstorm the country?
I said that, by the way, but go ahead.
Okay. Did Mitt Romney go around the country, barnstorming the country? Did Hillary Clinton, after 2008's loss, barnstorm the country again?
After 2016?
Right.
No.
So Bernie Sanders was down in Mississippi standing with the Nissan workers striking. Bernie Sanders was in Kentucky. I covered it, advocating to not repeal the Affordable Care Act, even though he doesn't even agree with the Affordable Care Act. But he saw we can't repeal some progress, even though he was still pushing for Medicare for all. He's been to Georgia. He's been to other southern states. He's been to other red states. So maybe that has to do with why I believe it was 12% of the donations came from Republicans. Yeah. So Bernie Sanders, the media likes to focus so much about Bernie Sanders isn't a Democrat and this and that. He has the best appeal.
What a weak argument.
If that's your only argument, what a weak argument.
Right,
but he's not a Democrat.
But he's
not running to be president of the Democratic Party. He's running to be president of the country. So the Democratic primary, should the Democratic voters be looking for someone that they would want to be the Democratic nominee more than anyone else? Or should the Democratic voters be voting for who could beat Trump in a general election? It's how you beat anyone in a general election, independent voters, which he has an over 50% favorability rating, and if he could pluck even like 10 to 15% of Republicans who voted for Donald Trump, he's president. He's president. That's it. So I mean, these are amazing numbers. I want to look at one more thing.
So, again, 39% new email donors.
Where are you?
Right here. So, assuming the vast majority of those aren't old donors using new emails, it suggests that the campaign has broadened its support since the 2016 run, which Sanders pulled in 43.1% of the vote. By the way, that number's bullshit because, frankly, I think he won Iowa. I think he won Missouri, but we don't need to get back into that. There's an assumption he's relying on that loyal base of support from 2016. Democratic strategist Jen Psaki told the Times the new donors could, quote, make people question the assumption that Bernie supporters are solely Bernie loyalists from 2016. That's the point. You weren't with me at the time, but when I covered Trump rallies, not like I didn't poll 5 people. I would ask pretty much every Trump rally. If not Trump, who would you vote for? I got very few Ted Cruz's. I got Bernie Sanders. Yeah. So you expect us to think a lot of those Trump supporters aren't disillusioned? Like, those plants aren't reopening anywhere that he promised to reopen. They might see minimal savings or minimal more money coming in their paycheck from the tax cut, but they're not overall seeing some magnificent change in their life. And a lot of them, including the workers we just interviewed in Ohio, in Michigan, that are being laid off by General Motors, are seeing worse under Trump, because Trump was making promises that he couldn't keep. The president by himself cannot dictate whether companies keep their plants in America or go offshore. That's policy. And as I've always advocated, there needs to be a hell of a lot of tighter regulation on these companies where we don't let them do whatever they want, and we don't give them bailouts with no strings attached, and we don't give them tax subsidies and deregulation with no strings attached. Meaning, if we're giving these companies subsidies, if we're creating favorable conditions, they have to keep a baseline of workers in America with benefits, with a living wage. So I think, let me tell you something. That's just 1 week. That's just 1 week of results. So I happen to think Bernie Sanders, if that's kept up, because honestly, I don't see any other candidate performing that way. Kamala Harris, although the media has done their best to kind of create this narrative where, like, she's got the buzz, she's not making that kind of money. Now, as she does fundraisers, she might be able to compete with Bernie Sanders on money because she's getting a lot of money. She's getting a lot of money from the usual suspects, which I'm actually looking into right now. She's doing a fundraiser in Hawaii in March with some questionable cats, including many that donated to Hillary Clinton. But you could have, as Hillary Clinton showed, you could have the money, but money doesn't equal enthusiasm. So Hillary Clinton outspent Donald Trump by 2-1. In the Electoral College, she got her clock cleaned. So I think this is very good news for Bernie. We'll see what happens at his rally Saturday. I'm still waiting to see if we're approved to cover his rally.
I'm sure
we put in for credentials, so we'll see about that. But I think the key takeaway here, that's a lot of new emails.
Yeah.
That's a lot of new emails. So that
it ain't nothing to sneeze at.
And even if it's a lot of people that already donated but have a new email, that's not all of them. So even if you had 20% of legitimate new donors, that's a big number. But they're saying it's 39%. And as a reminder, folks, smash the like button, which I should have said in the beginning. Smash the like button like your life depends on it. The more people that like this live stream, the more people will see it. We already spoke about membership.
Be intentional about saying. I know it's kind of hard because you're not. You know what I'm saying? You got to be more. Right. You got to say that more.
You got to like
the like button.
You got to smash the like button. Just throw a number
out there. I'm sure when you throw it out there, it's probably less than that.
You got to smash the like button.
There's 500 people on here. I only see 2.
I say that all the time.
No, I'm saying say it right now when you don't see it.
Right.
You know?
We already talked about membership. Follow us at Status Coup. Subscribe to our podcast, bit.ly/Status Coup podcast. And go to the website, statuscoup.com. Enter your email. Press allow notifications. Wonderful. Now, my other thought on Bernie, before we wrap that up. Bernie Sanders, I'd love to know your thoughts on his answers on, I don't think it was a plant, but about
how he's going to speak to the black community. You seem to disagree with me that he should speak to the black community differently than anyone else. I'm saying not that he needs to pander to black people, but I don't think he's connecting the economic message about how it would actually help a lot of people in the black community. Like we were talking about how breaking up the big banks would help black people who the housing crash, more black people were foreclosed on than white people.
No, I said you said exponentially. Disproportionately. I took exception to because no, I don't think anything that you can.
I take exception to your breath.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
That's just so funny because I just told him that I need to brush my teeth and his breath smelled like boiled bologna.
Oh, stop it. I don't even eat bologna.
Yeah. Well, it smelled like hot dog water. What was the question?
I said that I think when he's talking to a black voter asking him how is he going to connect with black voters, he should say, my policy is specifically tighter regulation.
Well, are we talking about connecting to black voters or are we talking about reparations?
No, I'm not talking about reparations. Okay. I'm talking about connecting to black
voters. But I think he has, though. I think that's just a BS. I think he's been able, I think what you're saying, I think he's been able to connect it. I think he's been able to connect his message to how obviously we're more disproportionately. Well, I guess emphasize more. I'm sure it's a way to tailor it so that it streamlines it, but. Is streamlining the thing that you need to do, or is the thing that you need to do to make sure that it's applicable to blacks as well as Trump supporters? I think that's been a huge thing. Because what we say is whatever is good for blacks is good for blacks, and that's it.
No, that's not what I mean.
I'm not saying that's what you mean. I'm saying that's can be the connotation to a Trump supporter,
right?
Not to you, not to me, to a Trump supporter. That to a black person you can say what's good to a Trump supporter. What that can mean to me is okay, that's not good for me, and it's just not true because a lot of it has to do with class. And if we're talking about you being in a certain economical bracket, then no, what can work for what we do to address the black plight obviously addresses the plight of everyone because in addition to the usual suspects, blacks, people of color, gays, women being affected by it, poor whites are affected as well. You know what I mean? And when you think about certain plans like the Affordable Care Act, the majority of people that's on the Affordable Care Act are poor white people. Because they need it as well. Even though they go against their own, vote against their own interests because of a name, they call it the Obamacare, so they think it's not something that they're currently on.
Right, but what I'm saying is there are certain issues that Bernie advocates for that specifically, if enacted, if you don't forget the word disproportionately, would help black people.
I don't disagree with you.
But that's what I'm saying. He's not connecting those two things. So for example, he should say, listen, the 2008 financial crash that affected everybody, obviously, more black people were foreclosed on because these banks that are still doing predatory lending targeted specifically inner cities, that those people didn't have the qualifications for those loans and might have not read the fine print. In fairness, most people don't read the fine print. So breaking up the big banks, tighter regulation of Wall Street would have helped
those black people that were being targeted. Number two, a lot of these communities with climate change, the lead contamination, Trump's peeling back of Obama's regulations. Most of these places I go where you got poisoned water, poisoned air, this and that, of course, there are white people that live there too, but a lot of these places are heavily black, heavily Latino, heavily indigenous, including mining. You see the highest cancer rates in America among Native Americans because of these mines that are right next to them. So my point is, I just think you should connect some of these policies.
I think so. I think he needs to. I guess in that regard, you're right that he needs to tailor his message. I think for some reason it almost seems like, I don't know if I'm mistaken on this connotation, but it almost seemed like he was a little irritable in this town hall. Almost in the sense like, you're not going to tell me what to do. Because I think some of the questions that he could have spent more time on, he didn't, and just kind of went past as if he's just like, this is what I'm going to do. I mean, good for him. That seemed like he controlled it.
Well, I think he's irritated because I would be too, because honestly, to me, the disconnect narrative, there's a disconnect with him and black Americans, has been largely created by the Democratic Party establishment. So if I was somebody who was arrested protesting for civil rights, if I was somebody whose policies I think he does actively think
about struggling communities, not just black, brown, indigenous, handicapped, all those things. But if the narrative has been formed, so I'm sure he's getting mad at being challenged on it because it's not true, and he doesn't think it's true that he has a disconnect with black people. Also,
but I didn't think it was true in 2016. Obviously, there was.
Well, no, I also think part of that, through my travels on the campaign trail, wasn't a disconnect with Bernie Sanders. Number one, most black communities.
He didn't connect his message to black people.
No, most black people did not know who Bernie Sanders was. When I went down to South Carolina, he had no name recognition. They certainly knew who Hillary Clinton was. Right or wrong, I think right or wrong, they had a lot of loyalty to the Clintons. So that's part of why he got creamed in places like South Carolina, Mississippi, Arkansas, the southern states. And a narrative because of that was formed, Bernie Sanders is a black person problem. According to the polls right now, he doesn't.
But he didn't then, though. But I guess this is what I'm saying in regards.
I just want to point out, he has a 73% favorability right now. 73% favorability with African Americans.
You never look directly into this lens. This lens is right here.
I like looking at you.
How?
Press the like button. Keep going.
He's touching on my leg right now, what was I saying? No, I think what I was getting at, Jordan, is this. The reason why my aunt feels the way they feel about Bernie is because there has to be some disconnect.
Nobody knows. How your aunt feels about Bernie.
I've told you guys before that they was for Hillary, period, point blank, and they were for Hillary in 2016. And they're saying, without even knowing anything at all, that they're going to be for whoever is running against Bernie Sanders in the primary. And I'm like, really? And they just have a chip on their shoulder. For some reason they just, I don't know. But I think in part that loyalty is a huge thing. I think loyalty is a big thing with the black community because for the majority of our time in this country, all we had, we didn't have. It was all about our word was as good as a character reference as we can get because we didn't have money, we didn't have anything like that people measured who a person was on. It was all about our character and our loyalty, and it meant something to dance with the one that brought you to the party, so to speak. So it means something to older people to continue to have an allegiance to a particular group of people that you feel brought you to the party. Obviously, there's exceptions, Barack being one of them, but initially they were in favor of Hillary until they got to know who Barack Obama was.
Even though Hillary and Bill kind of took you to the party and then threw you off the dance floor.
Well, but see, and obviously that wasn't even really understood because the majority of black people, and also you have to take into consideration manipulation as well. Black people don't want crime in their communities as well. So don't get it twisted you had a majority of black people during that time that was for this criminal act, the thing that Biden drafted. And it was because for the large part, they felt like they were living in a police state. They felt there were no resources, so people were forced to sell drugs or rob. The majority of crimes that are committed are economic crimes to get more money. And so they're like, okay, I don't want to have to worry about, my kid dying walking outside to the park, which was a real reality to a lot of older black people. So they were in favor. They didn't understand first off, that they were in that environment due to the policies that targeted black people, that gave black people less resources that white people had. And there was a whole lot of things that brought us to a breaking point where it made sense to sell drugs, where it made sense to want to join a gang. It made sense to rob because survival was at hand. So instead of taking all that into consideration, we're taking to my mother wants me to live. So, yes, pass this criminal act so then my kids can live. Fast forward, we understand now, we have more information about what that meant and what it did in years following. So, I don't want it to just seem as if Democrats and even black people for that matter in that moment wasn't for it, but they were for it because they had a lack of information. And Democrats were for it because they were more concerned about their political careers. They weren't concerned about, because if they were concerned about it, they would have been more, because they knew where it came from and they knew what would happen. But they manipulated the ignorance of the community that didn't know. The only thing they knew is that they didn't want to have to worry about their child walking down the street and being shot. You know what I'm saying? So that was a real worry for older black parents, my mother being one of them. Even though, me being a part of that gang activity, being in jail, like it was still a worry, until I got old enough where I didn't listen anymore. I had to be in the house before the street lights came on because we knew that a lot of stuff happened after dark in Compton. So when the street lights came on, I had to be at home until I got old enough to say no, and I just didn't listen. But, that's a real concern, and it's been a real concern. And I would say that it has been a real concern for a lot of and remains to be in certain areas a real concern that they feel like they're not getting the resources. So you're putting people in a predicament where they're forced to do these crimes. There's no resources, no organizations, nothing that's putting money in these communities. Guess what? They're like, yes, I want to walk down the street without worrying about dying. So then they go for bills that will at some point be not in their best interest in the long run. It won't even be in their child's best interest because then their kid that they're trying to keep alive will be targeted and then end up being put in jail or being in the criminal system just because he's suspected of being a suspect. And that goes to a system of oppression, the system of over incarceration that happens, and it all has to do with a lot to do with perception, right?
Right.
So I went into that rant, but I was saying is like, yeah, they voted against it and they went against their own interests, but just understand that the perception was that the Clintons were looking out for them. You know what I mean? Think about it. They said that Clinton was the first black president. Even though that was a running joke, they meant that because it seemed like he took the time to address the black community. Even though he didn't come to the Million Man March. I was in jail at the time, but I knew it happened. Even though he went against Farrakhan, but at least Farrakhan got 1 million men to come together in peace. He didn't support it. He didn't even speak on it. He had like a dinner the same day. You know what I'm saying? There's a whole lot of things he didn't address. And obviously now that we know, that criminal bill wasn't actually something that he cared about. It only became something that he cared about when he started to care more about, well, I guess we can argue that he's always cared more about his political career, but that was a Republican criminal bill that he enforced just so they can show that he was bipartisan and tilting more to the right.
And also welfare reform.
Yeah, real welfare reform as well.
That law was very, very catastrophic for African Americans. I want to wrap up that. Move on to one last topic. Remember, like this live stream, statuscoup.com, and don't forget,
it's 200 people on here, 300 people on here. I see 23 likes. Come on, let's get those likes.
And remember, we got a GoFundMe going. We're almost at 46,000. So, lastly,
let's go to the screen here. Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal introduced today the second Medicare for All bill. Obviously, Bernie Sanders was the first. She is the
Congresswoman representing Washington State, and her bill actually, in some areas, might be a little stronger than Bernie's bill. This bill would offer, obviously, Medicare for all, and it would get it done seemingly in 2 years, where Bernie's bill would be implemented in 4 years. Jayapal's bill...
Who is this?
Congresswoman from Washington State. Jayapal's bill would first extend Medicare, I believe, for people under the age of 19. Then it would create expanded care for people that already have Medicare, so people over 55. And within 2 years, people between 19 and 55, so our age bracket, would have it. It would be full health care, full dental, full hearing, full mental health services, and full care for long-term care. So those senior citizens, those kinds of things. The Intercept has a good piece here. We'll show you that talks about the special interests that were involved in this bill, and it is not the special interests that we usually think about. This time. The legislation, which is being introduced with more than 100 co-sponsors, is the most far-reaching since a Senate version sponsored by Bernie Sanders and includes benefits that are more generous. It also moves to full implementation in 2 years. It also a recognition by Democrats that the opposition party would try to appeal it if you gave them 4 years. The effort includes related legislation that would change the way long-term care is covered. Under the current system, Medicaid is the last resort, which effectively means that the sick and dying must impoverish themselves in order to qualify. The new bill would end that practice and allow people to die with dignity at home. The measure was written with the help of disability rights activists led by the Consortium for Citizens with Disabilities. Keep going. The new law, among its swath of new benefits, would provide dental coverage, a major... Jesus. Hold on. The new law, among its swath of new benefits, would provide dental coverage, a major boost to the health and quality of life of millions who suffer constant toothaches, or worse, for lack of access to dental care. I could attest. I've spent $5,000. I've spent $5,000 on two root canals, and growing because I have to go back the last year.
I can tell.
Along with the Consortium for Citizens with Disabilities. Your breath has nothing to do with your teeth. Anyway,
absolutely. If you have a cavity, it absolutely has everything to do with it. I don't have any cavities now because if you have to get a root canal, that means if they didn't do it right and you got the blood still coming in, the blood is affecting. You know what I'm saying? I can see the words coming out your mouth right now, like.
Along with the Consortium for Citizens with Disabilities, the main groups involved in drafting the legislation were National Nurses United, major nurses union that has long been on the forefront, Physicians for a National Health Program, the Center for Popular Democracy, Public Citizen, and Social Security Works. Noticeably absent, and this is fantastic, the Center for American Progress, which is Neera Tanden's fake progressive group. And also noticeably absent were Big Pharma, the insurance companies, doctors, and hospitals. So basically the doctors, the hospitals, Big Pharma, were basically dictating the
Affordable Care Act, and that's why it was watered down the way it was to basically be a Republican health care plan. This time, you had the National Nurses United, which was led by, I think it's still led actually, by Roseanne DeMoro, who was a Bernie Sanders surrogate. Obviously, you have Social Security works and actual special interests that care about actual people. So, some people feel that, I've heard from some kind of Medicare for activists, that the bill by Pramila Jayapal has been watered down from what it was originally going to be. Honestly, I haven't looked into it as closely to give an educated opinion on that.
But I will say, 2-year implementation is very good, because Bernie's is 4-year. I don't know why Bernie's is 4 years versus this is 2 years. So far, this bill that was introduced doesn't have the specificity that Bernie... This bill that was introduced today doesn't have the specificity that Bernie's does as far as how we would pay for it. Bernie is very clear how we would pay for it, with tax increases, not only on wealthy people, corporations, but also that everyone's going to have a modest tax increase, but you're going to save more because you don't have deductibles, co-pays, co-insurance, and all that. So without getting into like full detail of the plan, because honestly I need more time to look at it, what I like is more plans. More plans are coming out for Medicare for All, which only mainstreams Medicare for All and a single payer system more. The fact that she had 100 co-sponsors in the House is a positive thing, because I guarantee you a large number of those co-sponsors would have not co-sponsored this 3 years ago, 5 years ago. But now that it's polling at 70%, you could thank Bernie Sanders for that. More politicians are having some political courage. And now it's becoming what called the Overton window. We're moving the Overton window way to the left. So now things that were just like tree huggers were for the Green New Deal 10 years ago, and socialist welfare queens. Did you just rip?
No, that's the thing, fool. I was just acting like that's what it sounded like.
Yeah, they like to drill while I'm live. Sorry about that. Socialist, welfare queens wanted universal health care 10 years ago. Now,
welfare queens, that's
Ronald Reagan's.
Well, I'm just saying, it's one of those words. So I don't know if you guys knew, back in the 70s, they came to the conclusion that it's just not good politics to say nigga and black person and this. So we use code words like welfare queen and like these words that we use that will insinuate we're talking about black people.
Yeah. So I think this is a good step. I think if I want to see more specifics, but specifically dental care, hearing, long-term disability, and extended care for long-term illness is a positive thing. I also think you got Bernie's in the Senate, you got Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal's in the House. I say if Bernie's running, meld a few different plans together, get it out there. Because I think 2-year implementation is key. Because 4-year, I mean, you're leaving it to what if Republicans retake the House?
That's true.
In a 2-year midterm, or what if Republicans what if it passes under a Democrat, and then in 4 years?
For the most part, that could possibly be a thing. I mean, to this day, I can't see who would run against Bernie Sanders, but who would not enjoy like the benefits. But everything takes a little bit to get off the ground.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? They made a good analogy. They said running for president is like, and becoming president is like having a startup, and then the next day you're running a $1 billion corporation. It's like literally that's what happens.
Right.
That's how it is. And so obviously, I don't care how long Bernie Sanders has been in the Senate. It's still going to be some sort of learning curve that he's going to have to navigate in. And 2-year plan is way better than 4.
Right. And I also think the key here is moving the psychology of this all. Bernie Sanders talking about it as a human right. So is Pramila Jayapal. Getting rid of the capitalist, oligarchic, plutocratic talk that, it's not a right. It's, people have to work hard. Your employer gives it. You could get it from your employer if you have a job. Well, as Bernie said, during the town hall with CNN, go talk to people who have employee health care and ask them how much they love it when they still have high copays, when they're being asked to pay more into their health care plan. Most people, if you give them the choice between it being completely free and paying slightly more in taxes versus having more taken out of their paycheck, no.
Slightly more in taxes all day.
Right. And as Congresswoman Jayapal's bill says, in addition to Bernie Sanders, hey, you want cosmetic surgery? There will be private health insurance for you. Yeah. You want specific things that is not offered in the government plan? You could go to private health care. It's the same thing as free public college. Hey, you want to go to Yale?
Get good grades. If you can afford it. There's private, wonderful, prestigious Yale for you, and Harvard, and all that. But everybody should get a shot. I don't know about that. But free public college is for everybody, so everybody could have the opportunity. So I love it. I'm going to look closer into the details because I wanted to report that it happened today. But I want to look closer into the details to make sure it's as good as Bernie's plan. Because some hardcore Medicare for All activists have complained to me before today that Jayapal's bill was behind closed doors. Nobody knew what was in it. And it was being watered down, so I'd like to know what those same people think today, now that the details are out. I'd also want to get specifics. I'm not part of the how you will pay for it crowd. We have the money already. The government prints money for wars, so it should just print the money for healthcare, education, the environment, and, it's called an investment. You make more than you invest, because the government, it's not about whether we have the money or not, it's the priorities. Because as modern monetary theory will say, which is becoming more and more prevalent, Trump lawyer edited my false statements to Congress. Yeah, we talked about that.
I'm talking about the camera.
What modern monetary theory says is taxes don't fund federal spending, the government prints money. So really, we don't, it doesn't technically need, it's not like you pay for it with X amount of money, that's how you pay for it. No, the government prints the money. So that's another story that we've, I've had Steve Grumbine on. I would love to have Stephanie Kelton on modern monetary theory.
We're not under the ghost center no more.
Right. Correct.
So what do I want to ask you?
Make it short because we gotta go.
What? 126.
Maybe take a shower next time you come on. It's been a little hard to sit next to you. Just keeping it real.
Thank
you for keeping it real in front of everybody.
Okay.
What?
You said my breath smells like salami?
Yeah, it does.
I'd say pastrami.
Nah, I said boiled bologna.
So, you know the drill?
Looking at you. Statusquo.com/join. Become a member as low as $5 a month. Ty and I are already talking about new places we could go, and this man is doing it. It's a labor of love. How much pain are you in with your neck?
Doesn't matter.
You don't want to complain?
No.
You just want to
What is it gonna do? What is it gonna do?
We'll get sympathy.
From who?
The audience.
No audience sympathy? I'm in pain.
Thank you. So statusquo.com/join.
My birthday's on the 2nd. He's making me stay here for Bernie Sanders.
Yes, God forbid you have to work on your birthday. Work on your birthday at your age. I work on my birthday. You're turning how old?
Go.
So, statusquo.com/join, become a member as low as $5 to $10 a month. We got the GoFundMe going, Status Quo GoFundMe. Also, make sure you press allow notifications when you go to statusquo.com. That way you'll get notified when we post a new video, a new article, all that stuff.
Put a flat note again that we will be going live from the...
And we're also going to start going live from the website. That's coming up. So we will see you tomorrow, hopefully less drilling. Same fantastic broadcast coverage. Peace out.
Peace out. Right there.
Peace out.